Don't be surprised if God allows things to get shook up a bit in our lives, right? To get our attention and send us running back to Him. Send us running to wise counsel. Maybe send us running towards our true purpose. I'm sure there was a wake-up call for Mary when she was strolling there that day. That got her attention real quick, caused her to go running back to some people to help her out. All right, so resurrection lesson. So again, I don't know where you were at on Sunday morning with your Easter service, what scripture was being read, but God led me to this, to John chapter 20. So it's just an array of verses from there. So I'll read it and then we'll go through it piece by piece. Cool? So it says, early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. And then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. He saw and believed. Again, don't worry if you're not following along. We'll break it down together. Later in the story, Mary stood outside the tomb crying as she wept. She bent over to look in the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. I invite you to just imagine this. Let this come to life in your mind as we're reading it together, right? So early on the first day of the week, it's still dark. Jesus had just been crucified, right? That's what we celebrate on Good Friday, right? Jesus has been crucified. We know what happens on Sunday where Jesus rose again. Mary Magdalene went to the tomb. She saw the stone had been removed from the entrance. Now you got to understand, this wasn't like anything that was small. Like there was estimates this could have weighed as much as 1 to 2 tons. Like it would have taken something serious to move this, right? And so Bible says she came running to Simon Peter when she saw this and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So the characters in this story so far, we got Mary Magdalene, right? She arrives to the tomb. She just, wanders over there, probably mourning, going through it, stressing out. But she gets there, sees this thing that she never saw coming. She thinks that the tomb has been broken into. She thinks that they took Jesus' body away, right? And so she goes running back to Simon Peter, right? That's Peter, we all know, and the other disciple, the one that Jesus loved. Just in case you were wondering, that's John talking about himself in the third person. He wanted to make it clear to everyone out there that I'm the disciple that Jesus loved, right? So that's who we're talking about now. And so, what was interesting to me about this, right, is that Mary, she was going along, she was just strolling to the tomb, but then she encountered something that she had never seen before. Right, there's suddenly something happened that shook her up so tremendously, right, that she started running back to where Peter and John were because she had to get to someone to help her out. She had encountered something she had never experienced before, right, and so she immediately goes running back to them. Kind of interesting that she was just strolling there, but yet she goes running back. And so what I asked us, like, do you know anyone, you ever met anyone, they just have like no sense of urgency to anything that they do? Just kind of stroll through life. Let me just wake up and see what happens today kind of attitude. And so sometimes I think maybe if we're being real, we can all get into a little season like that. And so we can't be surprised if God had to do some things to get our attention. Maybe God had to do some things to shake it up a little bit. Why? So that we can go running back towards Him, right? We can go running back to some wise counsel, or we can go running towards our true purpose. And so number one on the back of the sheet, you follow along with us, says, don't be surprised if God allows things to get shook up a bit in our lives, right? To get our attention and send us running back to Him. Send us running to wise counsel. Maybe send us running towards our true purpose. I'm sure there was a wake-up call for Mary when she was strolling there that day. That got her attention real quick, caused her to go running back to some people to help her out. Anyone else have to wake up a 9-year-old little girl in the morning, in the a.m.? Or maybe other kids? Right? I don't know how it goes at your house, right? But I can tell you, like, I want it to go like the movie where you just see like that picture perfect thing where I'm like, Layla, it's time to wake up. Okay, Dad. And she gets up and gets out of bed and starts getting ready. Unfortunately, that's not how it goes. I try to be nice, man. I don't like to yell right off rip. Layla, put the lights on. Alarm's going off. Layla, it's time to wake up. We got to go. Let's get ready. Do the usual stuff. Right? And so then the mistake that usually happens is I go start doing some other things and I go back in the room 20 minutes later and she's still in bed. So unfortunately, to get her attention a little bit, I got to start shaking things up, which has usually woke me throwing the blankets down, shaking her up a little bit, whatever, getting her all mad. But finally, she wakes up. But I had to do some things to get her attention, to shake her up a little bit, to finally get some action and sense of urgency going for her. I think it's like the same thing with God, right? Sometimes I want to warn against us getting in these rhythms of life where we're just kind of going through these seasons of going through the motions. All right, we can wake up and I go to work and I go to a couple meetings throughout the week and then come home, scroll through my phone for a few hours, go to bed, hit repeat, right, over and over again, and man, no purpose, no direction, right? So don't be surprised if sometimes when we're in these seasons, God's got to shake things up a little bit. Right? You may have to allow some things to happen to get our attention, so we finally be like, "Whoa, hold on one second, right? Like this isn't working out for me, God. Like I got to a place where this complacency is filling my life. I don't have purpose. I don't have direction. Like I got to go running back to you, God. I'm sorry I left you a little bit. I got too busy for you. I need to go running back to some people in my life, right, that can be able to help me out. I need to go running back to the center of my recovery." And I can tell you firsthand, like I've been through many seasons of this, guys. I'm trying to speak to you out of personal experience here. And it's not even like it happens on purpose. We get sober. Good things start to happen. God blesses us. Right? And that comes with added level of responsibilities as He starts opening these doors in our life. And for some of us, that means we get more demanding jobs or we get a few things back that we have to pay for. We get our own place, a car maybe. We get restored with our children. Right? We get to get some things going in our life. And trust me, man, that takes a lot of our time up. And I can go through these seasons where I'm just coasting through and I'm doing a bunch of stuff, right? But I'm not focusing on the proper areas. And I promise you, man, it came to a point where God had to allow some things to happen to be like, all right, I got your attention now, Justin. You're not going in a positive direction here. I got to shake it up a little bit. And I'm like, yes, God, I clearly see it now. Right? Let me come running back to you, God, because I know every time I distance myself from God, I don't put as much into that relationship time. Right? I don't put time and effort and energy into that. Man, I feel that distance, and it's not a good feeling. I want to be connected with God. All of us should want to be, right? God, this has gotten stale. Let me come running back, please. I want that relationship back. Right? Sometimes I notice I'll get so busy that suddenly I'm not reaching out to people like I once did. And I'm like, hold on, God, I got to get back. Just like Mary ran back to some counsel, man. I got to get back to some people in my life. Hey, can we sit down? Like, can we make a lunch meeting? Whatever it is, man. I got to pour out to you what's going on in my life. If you have any advice for me, I got to run back to some good counsel. And finally, there's been plenty of times where I'm like, man, I got too busy. I'm not going to too many meetings and I'm making any sober phone calls. I got to step 3, 4. Now suddenly I stalled for a bit, right? Man, I got to go running back to the center of recovery. I got to go running back to people that like are immersed in the meetings, and just we can have some great conversations and go forward with these steps. Guys, this is important. Like I believe if that's you tonight and you can identify with that, maybe God's shaking you up at this present moment, it's a good thing, right? It's time to go running back to some things, right? Let's go. Let's move forward. Let's go to that next set of scriptures on there in that second paragraph. Verse 3 says, "So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. And then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. He saw and believed." There's a lot we can unpack from that for the rest of the night, I promise you that. What's interesting in both of these verses, what got my attention reading this story, is there's a lot of running going on. Right? We got Mary running, we got the disciples running down there. So I guess God's talking to someone and says, "Hey, you've been getting a little out of shape. We need you to start running again. Let's pick up the pace. Let's get it going." No, I'm just kidding. I know I do. I've seen this come back. I lost a little weight, gained every pound back. I'm like, all right, enough's enough, Lord. Help me, please. But this is funny, this story, right? That especially because John's writing it and he puts that key detail in there, right? So Peter and the other disciple, they started out for the tomb. Both of them were running, but just so y'all know, I outran old Peter. I left him in the dust. Right? I took off, got there way before he did. He felt the need to let us know that, I don't know, maybe it's a little friendly competition going on there. Like the whole Justin Devine thing coming up. Maybe it's a friendly competition between John and Peter. But here's what's interesting about it, right? Here's what really spoke to me when I was reading this. So let's get this straight. So Peter, we all know he was more of the leader. People went to him for help. Right? John and Peter are running together, but yet John takes off and he leaves old Peter in the dust. Right? He thought, I'm going to get there first. I'm going to check this thing out. I'm going to find the answers and make all this happen. Except he gets there and suddenly he sees something that he's never experienced before. He sees something that has him absolutely flabbergasted, like the tomb's open, Jesus isn't there, there's a bunch of linen lying down, I don't know what to do, I've never been in this position before, I'm getting into some territory I never ventured into, right? Maybe I need to stop and wait for Peter to catch up with me so that he can help me out a little bit here. Right? Maybe some things that were going through John's mind was hold on one second, I got ahead of everyone else. I outran my counsel behind me. I thought that I got this, but quickly realized this is a situation I've never experienced before. These are things I've never done. And yet we see when Peter came, man, he wasn't fazed at all. He just walked right in there. Right? Interesting. Number 2, on the back of the page, we need to learn, guys, we need to learn to have balance between going nowhere and barreling through life at the speed of sound. We got to learn to have balance between going nowhere and barreling through life at the speed of sound. There are so many advantages of finding the middle ground, of moving through life with God and wise counsel. So many advantages of finding the middle ground, of moving through life with God and wise counsel. So we kind of talked about what happens when we go to one extreme, right? We start getting complacent in our life. Sometimes God's got to shake some things up a bit to get our attention and go running back to him. But now we're going to talk about what happens when we go to the other extreme and it's just go, right? I got this, got some goals in mind, right? Now we see what happens when it's like, man, I need a job making $40 an hour. Right? I got to get my license back. I need a car out in the driveway. Of course, in my own place, because you know I'm moving out. Right? I'm getting back full custody of my kids, all within the first 3 weeks sober. Let's go. Been there. It didn't work out too well. Right? And so clearly, guys, we got to find a balance in our life between these two extremes, right? We see that neither of those are good for us. And so, there's so many characteristics, guys. They're not wrong in and of themselves, right? But just going to the extremes on either side isn't a good place to be. Could be a controversial subject, but I'll bring up sex, for instance. This comes from the AA step book, so don't get mad at me. Don't shoot the messenger. We're going to talk about sex within biblical confines, of course, right? So we know that God created the institute of marriage for a man and a woman to come together, to be of one flesh, to procreate, to multiply. It's a beautiful thing that God made. We are God's creation, right? He intended it for it to be that, right? And so in that same relationship, right, if we took it too far to one extreme and no one wanted to have sex ever, right, it probably wouldn't be a good thing. And if we took it too far to the other side where it's, no, this is all I can think about sex 24/7, 365, and now I'm looking at things I shouldn't be, and it takes us down the wrong road, right? Neither of those are good places to be, right? It's kind of messing up a beautiful thing that God intended it to be, right? We got to find the balance. We got to find the sweet spot, right? Think about that. Money, for instance. Money, for instance, right? I already knew. I threw it in there at the end. I knew someone was going to say something. That's all right. We got to find the sweet spot in everything. Right? Money, right? Same thing. God's fully aware that we all need money. He's fully aware how the world operates, right? And so there's nothing wrong with God blessing us with having a good career, with being prosperous, and as a result being super generous, right? But if we took it to one extreme, right, where we didn't care about money and I'm not going to work and I'm not going to do anything, that's probably not good, right? And if we took it to the other extreme where all I thought about was money all the time, I don't care about my family, I don't care about nothing else but making money, that's not good either. You understand where this is going? Think about it. And we're really good with extremes in this room, aren't we? Because most people just go out and they have a few drinks and they call it a night, right? I was sober all week. Hey, I worked for a little bit. I went out Friday and Saturday a little bit. I came back and they're fine for like three more weeks after that, right? Some people can just have one or two. I don't know what one or two means unless you're talking 1 or 200. Right? So we take things to extremes. And so all I'm asking us to do is, man, balance is probably a message series we could do for weeks and weeks. But guys, we got to find balance in our life in every single area, right? And so I just suggest to you that there may be some things out there. They're not bad in and of themselves. When we start taking it to those extreme places, it's not a good place to be. So can I ask us, man, can we find the sweet spot? Can we find that place where we're not becoming complacent and we're not just wandering through life, but yet it's not just go, 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 and I'm going 24/7, right? We find that sweet spot when we journey through this life with God. We journey through this life with some counsel, some people we can talk to that God put in our life. I'm telling you, there are so many advantages to that, and that is exactly where all of us should be ultimately. You with me on that? So now we'll read kind of the rest of those scriptures there. Jumping through. So Mary, she stood outside the tomb crying. I couldn't imagine what she had been through leading up to this particular point. As she wept, she bent over to look in the tomb, saw 2 angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They even spoke to ask her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." And at this, she turned around. She saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" And thinking that he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And at that, she turned towards him, recognized him, cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. I want us to see something out of that. This poor woman, she's so consumed in her grief. She's so consumed with this traumatic experience that she had just been through. Again, we have to imagine it to bring it to life. They just lost. The Lord has been crucified. He was pronounced dead. They laid him in that tomb. They thought probably their whole entire lives were over. It's like, did we believe in the wrong thing? Like, I thought he was going to live forever. What's going on here? Right? All the questions they must have been asking themselves, all the grief. Just, I can imagine she's just looking at all these outside circumstances that are so stressful and everything going on. Are they going to become persecuted? What's going to happen to their life now? Right? She's so consumed by her grief and how everything in her life seems not to be going the way that Mary thought it would be. You got to understand this. She misses that God moment right in front of her. Right? It says she looks and yet she saw the angels, right? But she didn't even realize that they were angels speaking to her because she's so focused on all these other things and how hard life is right now and how stressed out she is. Jesus even says Jesus is right there next to her. She had just been rolling with them for years leading up to that point. Now she can't even recognize that it's him. Right? So I want to ask us, man, how many times in our life, just like Mary, have we got so caught up in everything going on around us that we didn't even see Jesus right there in our midst? That's number 3 on the back page. How many times in our life have we got so caught up in everything going on around us that we didn't even recognize Jesus right there in our midst? I've been there. Interesting. My pastor, Pastor Steve from Oasis Church, he actually talked about this message here, and right, he had something similar right at this piece, and he brought this and put it on the screen. I don't know if y'all can see this from here. Anybody ever seen this before? So if you look at it, right, some people, they just see a bunch of puzzle pieces or some hieroglyphics that are sitting on this sheet, right? But if you look real closely, if you can see it from there, it spells out the word Jesus in there. I was actually familiar with this because my grandma had this on her dresser, and I saw it when I was growing up. But man, when you brought that to life, like, it made so much sense. It made so much sense. Sometimes we get so caught up in looking at all this other stuff on the page. We get so caught up in our grief or maybe just the stress that we're going through in life, or it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. I know right now we're going through some things that just came out of nowhere, just trying to sabotage us, the obstacles in our path, whatever it is. Sometimes we get so caught up looking at all that other stuff that we miss seeing Jesus right there in our midst. Miss seeing Jesus right there next to us. I'm telling you, I've been there. I've been stressed out and been looking at all this other stuff. And man, you can't even see those God moments anymore. It's not a fun place to be. Right? And so I'm just asking us, man, this week, right? This week coming up, can we start focusing on forgetting all that other stuff? Yeah, it's there. Yeah, we have to deal with it, obviously. But can we start looking, be like, God, like, I know you're here with me. I know you freed me from the slavery of addiction. There's no way you're going to let me drown in the Red Sea of life. You didn't bring me this far to see me go down now, Lord. So I'm just asking you, help me see you right next to me, God. Help me just see you in the midst of all my situations and all my stresses and all my circumstances, so I can stay focused on you, knowing you're going to help me out and we can do this thing together. That's what I'm asking for this week. Stay focused on Jesus and not all that other stuff that's going on. And then finally, man, look, I want you to see what happens to poor Mary here. Very key, very important, right? What people say. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh, right? Woman, why are you crying? Her answer, they have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him. Again, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for? Her answer, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him. A few things happened to Mary during all this when she was losing her focus on God, right? One, she lost hope. You could tell she packed it in. You could tell by her answer she thought it was over. The only one of the major reasons that she was stressed out again is because she thinks that someone came in and stole Jesus' body and went and hid it somewhere and did something with it. And she just wanted him back in his proper burial place. She lost hope. She thought everything was done. And next, she assumed the worst. He's dead. He's not coming back. Our lives are over. Right? It's so easy to go to the negative side of things and always assume the worst about situations. And finally, maybe almost worst of all, she forgot that God was still in the supernatural business. Okay. She forgot that God was still in the supernatural business. It's okay. I'm not faulting her. I've been there too, I promise you, right? But I'm just saying, man, we've seen these miracles. Imagine she's rolling with Jesus. She's witnessing this stuff firsthand, right? But yet she forgets that, man, God, Jesus did all this. I know he promised us that he was going to come back. He can raise himself back up. It's not over yet. Man, I've been in those places where God did. He freed me from the miracle, or he freed me from the slavery of addiction. God worked a miracle in my life. He did some amazing things. And then I get to these points in life where, man, I think I got to do it and I got to make it happen. And I forgot, oh, hold on one second. God's still in the supernatural business. Right? He didn't stop back then when this Bible was written. He did some miracles in my life years ago. He's not stopping now, right? God can and still will come through. So I want us to see that last point on the back, number 4. Not only can focusing on all the hard things in life cause us to miss Jesus right in our midst, but it can cause us to lose hope, to assume the worst, and forget that God is still in the supernatural business. Want to address someone that's possibly in that season right now. Maybe you got some rough stuff going on. Maybe like Mary, man, you lost a little bit of hope. And you think, I don't know if I can come back from this. Maybe you started assuming the worst about things. Isn't that a natural reaction sometimes for us, man? So easy to just assuming the worst case scenario about things. Maybe you got to a point that you forgot that God is still in the supernatural business. And I came here to encourage you tonight that, like, it's not over. There's still hope. God's still there in our midst. Even if we haven't seen him for a while because we're focusing on all that other stuff, God is still right here with us. He's walking alongside us. He's going to help us through whatever comes against us, right? It is not over, right? Don't assume the worst, assume the best. Like, God, I know you can do the impossible. I know you can come through in this situation. God, I'm believing that whatever your will is going to be way better than anything I had planned, right? And we cannot forget that God is still in the supernatural business. We're all walking miracles in this room, right? You got 24 hours sober, you're a walking miracle. God did for us what we cannot do for ourselves, and don't think he's going to stop right here, right now. Anything is possible. I promise you that. So maybe whatever that situation is that you're thinking of, whatever you're going through, man, we need to go to God tonight and be like, God, I believe that you can come through. I know you can still work miracles. You haven't dropped me off here, God, and I'm asking you to work in this situation, Lord, because I know all things are possible through you. Amen. So this relationship, guys, that we talk about, this prayer life, it all starts with a decision, right? And so if you've got any doubt in your mind that you've never accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, and maybe there's some things you're questioning in the Bible, maybe someone prayed a prayer with you, asked you to repeat it, and you weren't even sure what it meant or what you were praying for, any doubt in your mind whatsoever, don't leave here tonight without talking to me. That's the most important decision that we could ever make. And so I feel led to do it with people on a one-on-one basis so we know what we're praying for, what we're believing in. So if I can ever help anybody with that, please let me know. Right? And I appreciate you guys coming out. I pray that spoke to you. God, thank you so much for the entire Bible, Lord, but just for just having these things documented, God, so we can believe, Lord, just maybe that encouragement at just that right moment, the beautiful thing that all these people went through the same exact struggles and situations and hardships we did, and they're human just like us. Right? Sometimes we fall back a little bit. Sometimes we go a direction that we shouldn't, God. I don't know if maybe we're in that place where that complacency is kicking in and you're trying to shake it up, Lord. You're trying to get our attention right now. Maybe we've been going too fast, trying to do too much. You're trying to reel us back in a little bit. God, I don't know what it is, but I'm just asking you, if we lost sight of you in the middle of this stressful world, God, can you help us to adjust our focus back to you, Lord. Right, just like that puzzle, we want to see you, God. We don't want to see all that other stuff. God, I pray that you help us know it's not over, that truly you can do the impossible, God, and we got to start believing that you have the best intentions for us. I want to thank you for the miracles I know you're going to continue to do for everyone in this room, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, guys. God has called us to something higher.
Freed us from the slavery of addiction. Blessed us in so many ways.
Like it talks about in the Bible, that unity that's going to bring people to Christ.
When you pray those prayers from a place of desperation.
No matter what is going on in my life, God has this covered.